Hello, this is the Watchdog, and welcome back to Fun with Watches. If watches weren't fun, you'd only need one. Today we're going to review the Pagani Design PD-1690 homage to Rolex Oyster Perpetual. Let's start out with the wrist check. I'm wearing my Pagani Design PD-1707 homage to AP Royal Oak. And Gregor's wearing my San Martin SN030G Flieger watch. Gregor went to a fish fry last Friday. I said I thought he was Jedi and not Catholic. He said he is a Jedi. He just went for the halibut. Alright, let's take a look at the watch. I have it in the box here. If you've seen my unboxing video, you know it comes with the cleaning cloth and the unsigned warranty card and instructions. And it also comes with this tiny little screwdriver. For God's sake, do not use this screwdriver to adjust your bracelet. It is too big. No, it's not too long, but the head's too big and you can screw up your watch. Get a good set of screwdrivers, please. And here it is, an homage to the Rolex Oyster Perpetual, the newer 41mm version. Of course, this is not a 41mm watch, and this one looks a lot like the Tiffany dial. It used to be not that long ago that your basic Oyster Perpetual was one of the few steel Rolexes you might be able to actually get at the AD. Well, last year Rolex ruined that by releasing a new OP with all kinds of fun colors and made the OP hot again, and now you can't get those at the AD either. Then Patek Philippe lied again about the discontinuance of the 5711 Nautilus and released one with a Tiffany dial, and one ends up selling for over $5 million at auction, which is 100 times its suggested retail. Then people started noticing that one of the colors of the new fun OPs was a similar shade to a Tiffany dial, and interest in that color went through the roof, and the 41mm version is selling for a good 40 grand on the secondary market. So when I decided to review one of these Pagani Design OP homages, I went with the light blue one since that was all the fuss was about. I must say it's kind of a fun color and the wife really likes it. Mrs. Watchdog gets bored with all the dive style watches I review. The watch is 38.6 millimeters if you measure at the bezel, 39.6 millimeters though if you measure at the case. So this is a hair smaller than the 41mm OP. 49.1 millimeters lug to lug, which is kind of long for a 40mm watch. 52.2 if you count the protruding end links. And it's only 11.6 millimeters thick, which is pretty thin for an NH35 automatic. Whenever you can get under 12 millimeters, that's a pretty good sign. Has a 20mm lug width and weighs 139 grams with 2 links removed from the supplied bracelet. Being an OP homage, it has a smooth polished bezel, no fluting or anything like that. The dial is a flat color with no sunburst effect. We have the Pagani Design name and logo printed on top. On the bottom it says PT time, which Pagani Design is adding to more and more of their watches lately. Not sure what PT stands for. Then it says automatic and then gives the 200 meters water resistance, which is 100 meters more than a real OP and 100 more than most Pagani Design dive style watches. I don't know why they felt like we needed 200 meters, but I guess the more the merrier. Has applied loomed baton indices with double batons at the 3, 6, and 9. A current generation Rolex OP has the coronet at the 12, but this one has the more traditional triangle. The chapter ring has minute markers with black squares at the 5s. The stick hands are loomed. This is the V2 version, and thus there is no date at the 3. They have a V1 version that has the date if you prefer a date. The dial does look better without it, plus the Rolex doesn't have the date. We have a signed screw-down crown, which helps with the water resistance. It pops nicely when unscrewed, like most NH35s do. And it has good thread action when screwing back down. And there is a ghost date, but I don't mind. An NH38 would have just raised the price for no gain. We have a sapphire crystal with AR coating. It does a pretty good job of not obscuring the dial. Yeah, you're going to have sun reflection, but it's pretty good. The case is a solid stainless steel with polished sides and nicely brushed tops and bottoms. And the brush tops match the brush bracelet. There is a screw down case back, and they went with a mountain climbing theme this time, which seems like it would belong more on an explorer type watch. Although I'm glad it's not a diver's helmet, which would have been totally wrong for this style of watch. It has the Pagani Design logo, and then if you look closely, you can see that it has two climbing tools crossed together. So that's, once again, it's a mountain climbing themed case back. I'm glad it's not a display case back, since that would add some thickness to the watch. And I've seen many in an NH35, and Pagani Design uses the stock rotor, so why look at it? The Seiko NH35A is the go-to movement for automatics in this price range. There's been an NH35 shortage, and Pagani Design was starting to sneak Miyota 8215s into their watches. I didn't mind the first time it happened. Then I got a Longines Hydro Conquest homage with one that had a really bad stutter, and I've been wary of the 8215 ever since. Thankfully, I think Pagani Design has received enough negative feedback that they gave up on that and just raised their price a little. The NH35 is a 24 jewel 3 Hz movement that hand winds, hacks, and has a bidirectional rotor. They are fairly accurate off of the shelf, but not as consistent as a higher end movement, as position really does matter. Let me show you the watch on the time graph. Here it is on the time grapher. As you can see, those are some pretty good numbers right there. So there's nothing to complain about with this movement. So let's go ahead and put it in a different position and see if that matters. Move it down one. And that really didn't affect it much. In fact, it improved it just a hair. So let's put it all the way down. This one's a good one. This one's really consistent. Usually position really matters on an NH35, but this one's doing good. Let's do one more position just for grins and giggles. All right. Man, this movement, I would call it cost certified if it was actually certified. Those are some pretty good numbers. The Oyster style bracelet has solid end links and is a brushed single link that looks like a 3-link. It has screw pin adjusters, and once again, do not use the tiny screwdriver that came with it. Get a good set of screwdrivers. You don't want to mess these screws up. And they do have fairly big heads for screws, but it's just the screwdriver they give you. The head is just way too big. The sign clasp is a Rolex style clasp, and it has 3 slots of micro adjust, and it does have the easy link system. So if your wrist gets sweaty, you can let it out a little bit without getting out the adjuster. Unfortunately, it does not have glide lock, so you do need a tool to adjust it. And it's kind of awkward because you have to get the tool right in here, and you can only get it on one side because there's no slot on the other side, and then you have to position it. It works, but it doesn't work very well. The clasp itself, though, it works fine. The safety here is a little hard to get your thumbnail under, but then you can open it just fine. I'm just not a big fan of the Rolex style clasp. I wish they would have used their Omega style clasp. It was just a better clasp. But I understand it. The whole point is to look like the Rolex, so they use the Rolex style. Here is the watch on my 7.5-inch wrist. I think it looks really nice. It sits nice and flat. I had to remove 2 links to fit it. I'm not going to show it to you on any other straps right now. I think it just looks fine on the bracelet. If you're going to get an OP, leave it on the bracelet. I had really high hopes for this Lume test. When I woke up this morning, I could still see this Lume glowing, which is better than any Pagani design I've ever reviewed. So I was sure it wasn't going to be a dud. As I speed up the time, you can see that the hands are glowing pretty good and the indices aren't bad either. We'll do a full 20 minutes, and the simple fact that we can still see indices after 20 means this is really good for Pagani Design. No, it's not as good as my exceptional watches such as my Tag Heuer, Heimdallr, or Seiko, but still very pleased with the lume on this watch. What do I like about this watch? Well, the appearance. They really nailed the look, and they really nailed the dial color. It's a very pleasant looking watch. I'm glad I got it. Has the best lume of any Pagani Design watch I've ever reviewed. It's not wonderful lume, but it's pretty good lume. And I like how the watch sits nice and flat on my wrist. And I like that it has AR coating on the sapphire crystal. Makes it easier to see through. What are my gripes and groans? Well, I only have one. It's not really a gripe and groan because I understand why they did it. But I'm just not a fan of the Rolex style clasp, and I wish they would use their Omega style clasp instead. Do I recommend this watch? Yes, of course. I really think Pagani Design upped their game with this one, and everything just turned out great. I'm really going to have a hard time selling this when I'm done. This just might have to become a permanent part of my collection. Well, thank you for watching my review of the Pagani Design PD-1690 homage to Rolex Oyster Perpetual, and I will be back with another review. More than likely the Pagani Design that I'm wearing right now. Bye.